What's going on today, Internet? Selfish here with Retrospect. Every once in a while, a handheld comes along that you know you don't need, you know it may not perform the way you want without putting in a lot of work, and for me, that handheld is currently the GKD Pixel. It's an all-metal micro machine that can fit in any open crevasse and works mostly sometimes just the way you might want it to, sort of. Let's take a look. After I ordered this, GoGameGeek actually reached out to me and said, hey, can we send you a gift bag? And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. So this is pretty kind of cool. So before we get going, I'd just like to give a big thank you to our friends over at GoGameGeek for supplying this premium gift bag with my purchase. This high-quality reusable gift bag has great colors that reflect in sunlight like an old CD hanging from your rearview mirror, along with these beautiful, what I can only assume aren't hand-stitched pleather handles. The entirety of this receptacle is near perfection. I'm working on putting together a future giveaway, and if it fits in this premium handheld transporter, it's going to come in clutch. That is, if my kids don't steal it first. Thank you, GoGameGeek. You're the best. If you find yourself in the market for a high-class hutch, I've placed a link to this handheld hamper down on my thingamabob. Now, what we're here for. We have some serious business to attend. It's not all gift bags and rainbows. We're taking a look at one of the greatest handhelds that there are out right now. This is one of the smallest Emulation Handheld boxes I've ever unboxed. Part of its size may be due to the lack of needed USB-A to USB-C cable. There does not happen to be one of those inside the packaging here. GKD seems to have taken their policy of cutting down e-waste to a whole new level by not including either the brick or the charging cable that are both required in order to make this device work. So I'm hoping I can find the correct cable in your mom's nightstand, right next to all of her other electronics. Interestingly, the scratch paper here is actually taller than the Pixel itself, but we'll get into that in a minute. Pull her out of here, we'll see what she all looks like. Ooh, my voice cracked. Fantastic. That's how we're gonna do this today. Oh, I'm running into stuff. I wish I had one of those like electronic scopes so we could probably see all this stuff a little bit better, because there are some pretty cool details on here that I just don't know. Well, maybe it will. Maybe if the camera will pick it up or not. I'm not positive, but we'll see how it goes here. But it would give us a more proper look at the I/O, I think. But we'll get all the important stuff. So we will start at the top like we always do. We do have our L1, L2, and our R1, R2. They are switches. They feel fantastic. They have very little travel, which you would assume for how big this is. Also, not real loud. It's kind of impressive for how compact this thing is. On the back here, we do have a place for a lanyard strap, and then we also do have, I think people call these grips, but I almost wonder if this is more for heat dissipation. But you know, I could be wrong. On the right-hand side over here, we do have our power and our menu button. The cool thing about power on this handheld is that these here, and you'll see it when we turn it on, is your power indicator, and it slowly depletes over time as the device runs out of power. Really unique design. It's really cool they put this on the external here. Then taking a look right over here on the left side, we do have our up and down volume buttons. Those are also buttons used for changing your screen brightness, and we will go over some of these things as we go along here. And we do have a memory card slot. It did come with a 64 gig preloaded card. Funny enough, GameKitty put their own name on here. You would think that that would make it a higher quality card, but 3 out of my 4 card readers can't read this card. So I've got one that can, thank God. Moving along down to the bottom here, we do have a speaker hole, we have a C hole, and we do have a 3.5 hole for listening to them jams. And this does have a media player, so if you wanted to combine the two, I don't know if you don't have a cell phone in 2024, I don't see the point. I could see where maybe some people would like it, but I think it's pointless unless you don't want to wreck your cell phone battery and just use the battery on here, which is very small, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. We do have our display, and then we do have our face buttons. These are made of metal. They do have a decent like travel to them for how small they are. I haven't measured them, but I'm almost positive these are still, even how tiny this device is, bigger buttons than they put on the RG28XX. I think these might be bigger. My little meter thing has been out of battery for months now. I need to really get that battery replaced. Yeah, I got to do that. But that's for another day. We do have our start and select button. Very tactile feel to them. Also metal. Good clicky noises. So those sound pretty good. They're not overly loud. Just like the buttons are nice and quiet. And then our D-pad also, you guessed it, made of metal. You know, you would think that this would seem loud, but when you're playing it, I've never even noticed it making noise before now. So I don't think that this is actually loud, which is great for metal on metal, because you know it's hitting those corners somewhere. While we power this thing up, we'll go through the specs here real quick. Not going to take very long. Not a whole lot to talk about. It does have an awesome load screen though. This has the Ingenic 1830 processor. The screen is a 2.4-inch full fitted screen. Screen resolution is at a 320 by 240, 128 gigs of RAM. Its battery is only a 1300 milliamp hour battery. It has the full metal housing and keys and inline trigger switches. The charging cable is a USB-C that's finicky as well, and it is not included. If you're going to make finicky charging cables, you probably should include them, or just in general, just saying. This handheld gets uncomfortably hot in specific situations. All metal shell just trying to dissipate the heat. It gives you that warm all over vibe. I found the biggest culprit culprits for this flaming Famiclone are PS1 emulation and standby mode. PS1 makes sense because the SoC is outperforming in an overclock state to get your games to play mostly at their best. When in standby, it's a bit confusing, but only the screen shuts down. So it's not really in standby, and it gets really warm. It's almost like the Pixel feels neglected in your pocket, and like a nagging child poking you, it heats up to remind you it wants to be played with, and playing with it actually kind of cools it down, which is really weird. I've tried to capture the performance dips due to temperature, but I've, like everything else with this handheld, I'm not exactly sure what or how I'm doing anything, even though it seems to be working just the way that I want it to. Or to simplify it, I don't know how I got here, and so I can't tell you if it's better or worse. I've learned to, when I find things the way that I like them, save things, favorite stuff, and move on, which we'll talk about the favoriting on this here as we go along here. The Pixel is very heavy for its size. As I mentioned, it's all metal, including even the buttons on here. We're going to weigh it real quick and just see what it's all about, but it is a fairly heavy handheld. It's coming in at 107 grams. What does that compare to a Miyoo Mini, I wonder? 108. So same weight as a Miyoo Mini, but not dispersed as well. It's smaller than the screen on an RG35XX Plus. So to give you a feel there, it is a tiny little device. It more or less weighs the same as a Miyoo Mini. But all that being said, it is one of the best build quality handhelds that I've played with in a while. Minus possibly the seemingly fragile screen. I don't want to do this really, but you can see just touching it, it's very, very thin, so I have some concerns about this screen. I think it's the only weak spot on the external of the entire handheld. Everything else seems to be pretty well wrapped in metal. Maybe not good if it got wet, but as far as dropping and things like that. And my fear might come from the Miyoo Mini and the screens falling out of them. I have a V4 here that I just replaced the screen on for falling out, I don't know, a few months ago, and now the new screen is already coming out. Homer wouldn't like that, so we got to fix that quick. I got to get a hold of Miyoo and get a new screen for that one again, but at least this time the screen's not out. Last time the screen was out. We got that going for us. The metal design on this really makes you ready for any FPS battle. Shoulder buttons are difficult to use sometimes. They are really flat, but they did try to make it easier by included inverted letters on L1 and R1, and you can actually feel it when you're trying to play. It's really freaking weird. And the L2 and R2 buttons are raised, so there's a big difference there. And for some reason, my brain connects to this, and I'm actually able to use these and tell which is which when I'm playing games. I don't even have to think about it, which is just mind-boggling to me, because when I first started looking at this, I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to use these buttons. Now, granted, most of the systems you're going to play in here aren't going to use these buttons anyways, but if you do want to use them, they are there. Keeping with the design of the handheld, there was no choice but to make these buttons flat. Otherwise, this handheld would not look as sexy as it does. So knowing that they weren't going to be used much with the systems that are available on here, it's nice that they put at least a little bit of effort into inverting these and embossing them in order to making it so that you can tell them apart. You know, one of the things that I always talk about is joysticks, and you just have to look at this to know that it's not going to fit joysticks, and this SoC really doesn't support them anyways, so it really doesn't matter. You wouldn't need them. In some of the past smaller devices GKD made, they have sold a separate attachable joystick little thingamabob that goes on the bottom here, and you're actually able to use joysticks with them. There would be absolutely no benefit on this device to being able to do that, just because of your limitations on what you can play. Also, that would just give you something else to carry around, and this wouldn't be as pocketable, and it wouldn't be nearly as cool. And those things were also like $60 for the attachment, I think, if I remember right. If you plan on picking one of these up, you can just toss ergonomics right out the window. This isn't a handheld for extended gaming sessions. When they start making tiny Tetris transformers like this, ergonomics takes a backbench. They packed everything into it that they could possibly get into it, and then said, we'll invert the mode for the shoulder buttons, because anything could help. We're not going to put any more effort into it. And where would you? There's really nowhere to put anything else. The firmware that comes on this is abysmal. And we're going to take a little look here. We do have an app drawer. This will give you to your media players. Like I said, you can play music and videos on here as well. Not a whole lot in here in your settings. Very limited. You do have a setting for Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi doesn't exist on here. There is no internal Wi-Fi module as far as I'm concerned. I was actually going to pull this open during this review because there's only a few screws in here. My concern is I'm never going to get it back together as well. Metal's not very forgiving, unlike the plastics that most of these devices are made with. I'm a little concerned that the seams aren't going to match up perfectly, and you're going to be able to tell, because with metal, if you just have like a fraction of a millimeter off in one spot, it's 2 millimeters by the time you get to the end of the device, and I want to keep this thing looking as cool as possible. Unless I can come up with a better reason to open it. I'm really upset though, because this was advertised having Wi-Fi. All the online listings say it has Wi-Fi. I'll be honest, I didn't look at the listing when I purchased this through GoGameGeek. I didn't check to see if they list as Wi-Fi, but I'm guessing they probably don't. I've run into this before where I thought a device had Wi-Fi and it didn't, and they didn't have Wi-Fi listed on there, and I probably should have looked, because I would have been less disappointed when I got it. I don't think it would have stopped me. I still would have got it. There is some other cool things about this OS. They do have a whole lot of ports already built into this operating system. Lots of games in here, so if you want to play them, they have a full port library preloaded for you when you get the device. It's right there on your memory card. Because of my card reader issues, it's difficult to get these ports off of here, because I was planning on doing something with this, and I will talk about that a little bit later, but I wanted to keep the ports with everything else I was doing, and I was finding it difficult. But you don't know what you're doing to get in or out of anything. I'll give you an example. We have 3 different ways to play games. So before your first time opening this up and turning it on, so you have RetroArch. So if you've been around this for a while, you would know that it's going to have cores in it in order for you to play games. Now, if you've never been in the scene before and you ordered this, you have no idea. And then you have a games, so you assume, well, that's where all my games are. That's where all the ports are. So yes, there's games, but they're all ports. They're not the games that you probably want to play. Maybe you do, but like that's probably not why you bought this. And then there's Emulator, also games. So emulators, games, RetroArch, all look the same pretty much, right? And then there's tests. There's beta emulators in here that you can play with. So the first 4 folders all have games. Then you have that app folder that we looked at that really doesn't do a whole lot for you. And then you have your settings, which has your power and your clock. So it's really confusing to anybody that would be just picking this up and not knowing what they're doing. I mean, which one of these folders to go into? So you're like, oh, games, ooh, games, ooh, games, more games. Which games do we play? This is stock. This isn't an aftermarket operating system, so it is a little confusing. As I stated earlier when I was unboxing it, this is going to be the first handheld that I would recommend carrying the user manual for, at least for a couple of days, just so you get used to things. The reason being is a lot of the things on here are hotkeys, and when they're not, it's even more confusing. But for instance, you'd want to know maybe how to change the screen brightness, menu, volume up and down. It's somewhat typical for some of these handhelds, but not all of them. It tells you how to power on and off the device. Also, it's not in here, but say you wanted to put it into what they call standby mode. You don't hit the power button because that'll just reboot it. You hit start. And now our screen is off, so it doesn't actually go into standby. As you can see, it's still running, it's just the screen is turned off. You'll find that on accident because you're going to hit this button trying to find other things, and you're probably going to be trying to get back to your home menu when you find out that it's what turns the screen off. See, everything's like this, but for some reason, if I put it like this, it almost always turns back on anyways, so I'm not sure what that's all about. Let's say you're in an emulator, right, and you're going to go play a game. If you want to go back, typically it would be the B button. That's not the case here, because this is going to bring you into the menus. To get out of this, you have to hit start, and then to get out of this menu, you hit start. Oh, you don't. See, that's where you're going to learn. You're going to put the screen to sleep. Now we hit the B button. Very confusing. Nothing's consistent. I think they made this manual look so pretty on the outside because they knew you were gonna have to carry it around, and it seems pretty durable in comparison to some of the other ones that we've seen. When it comes to firmware, there is an offering from MIUI, and we'll go about that in a different video. I'm actually testing that right now. I don't have it completely set up the way that I want to. I installed MIUI, works great for the most part, but if you're unfamiliar with MIUI, it's very restrictive in comparison to what a stock OS would be on this particular device. You're losing some of your like PS1 emulators and things like that. So the emulation in some of those emulators that are on MIUI is horse poo-poo, and it doesn't work very well. So you need to go and actually fix that. So Russ from Retro Game Core actually created a addition to MIUI, which I'm working on right now. To put it in layman's terms, you have to move around a bunch of files. As you find ones that don't work, you have to move them in different folders. But in the end, it's supposed to create a great experience. And so far, what I've moved around and made work so far works great. I'm not even a third of the way there yet. So I will do a video on MIUI on the GKD Pixel once I actually have some time to get it all set up, and I'll play with it because I carry this thing in my pocket all the time now. My Miyoo is still in my bag, but this fits in your crevasse, as I said at the beginning, so it goes, let's say, in my pocket. Now keep in mind, you aren't going to be playing Switch games or PS2, anything like that, no matter what firmware you put on this. It doesn't have the hardware to use some of those emulators. It's a little behind. The SoC in this is actually pretty old. It's been used in a lot of devices before, but they have kind of like how, you can make your PS2 smaller. They've learned how to shrink it down over time, so they've made it small enough now where you can fit it into a device like this, which is, I think, pretty awesome. And if you think about it, just one of these consoles out of the 20 or so that are on here that you can play games with cost hundreds of dollars when it came out, and now for less than $100 you can get all those in something with a 2.4 inch screen. You can pretty much hide this wherever you are. People won't notice. Or if I'm feeding my daughter, I'm just starting to play Pokemon for the first time because on here I just one-hand it. I was planning on using my Miyoo Mini for that, but then I decided, you know what, I'm going to try this device out. Some people complained about it, some people liked it. I wanted to kind of see what I felt about it. So I ordered it, and finding that it's really good for like feeding my daughter or rocking her to sleep. I can have this, a bottle in one hand, this in the other hand, rocking her to sleep in one hand, reading a book, or I guess not reading, well, sometimes, but have something up for her, and she's going to sleep, and then have this in my other hand, and it's not cumbersome. It's not my way. It really just, it fits right within the scenario. Or if you're somewhere that's probably not publicly acceptable for you to be playing games, you can kind of get away with it. And I'm not going to say that, people won't notice, but if you're clever enough, I'm pretty sure that you can make it happen. It's like a magic trick. And some of those emulation restrictions might be a blessing in disguise for this. It only has a 1300 milliamp battery. This thing would shoot through a battery real quick. I mean, even on PS1, that's gonna be your higher end stuff. Wet spot. What the frick is wet spot? PS1's gonna get your higher end emulation on here. It's gonna shoot through your battery a lot faster than if you're playing SNES or something like that. It would be really neat to see a device this size do that. It would be a very expensive device. There are some offerings coming out for a vertical handheld from Neo. I have a feeling that they're gonna be a little more expensive than this, but they do have a Snapdragon chipset. I just don't know that I would need that in in a handheld that I'm trying to just do quick hits, in and out, in and out, in and out. I might have played this game once before. I don't remember. Yeah, because I always think that I have to jump. Yeah, okay, it's like Pac-Man. Okay, never mind. It's not as cool as I thought it was going to be, all right? Menu button doesn't work. Start select doesn't. Oh, okay, so I guess when you get to main menu, hit select and it goes back to, okay. And now if I hit select, I can power off, or I can delete the game, or I can hit start. Nope. So with that small battery, probably good that it's small also because it didn't come with a charger or a charging brick. So I wouldn't expect the brick anymore. I think that's pretty commonplace now where we're going green. We're not going to give you the brick, but I don't know if they were just trying to keep the box small, but those Type-C chargers are just a drop in the bucket in comparison to the price of these. I don't understand why they didn't include the charging cable on this, and it is a little picky. I actually have a charger that I bought a month before I'd even gotten this from an Etsy account, which has a Ugreen charger on it, but it's a stand. You may have seen it in the back of another video, but this works really well. Plugs right in. This is a Ugreen cable that's connected to it, and this is how I've been charging it. It makes it through the day for what I do with it anyways, so it's not been an issue, but the fact that it has such a small battery, you could blow through it pretty quickly, and the battery trickle charges. It seems like it takes a long time to charge this for how small that battery is, which seems really odd to me. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but the fact that this doesn't have Wi-Fi and I can't do my retro achievements is driving me insane. Now, I haven't tried putting an adapter on here yet, which I probably could try. I'm just so upset that it told me it was going to be on here and it's not, that now I just don't want to put any effort in. I feel like I bought an R36S in the early days when nobody knew if it had Wi-Fi or not, and the boxes to this day still say it has Wi-Fi. Drives me insane, but at least we know on that one that doesn't have Wi-Fi. This came, no Wi-Fi. Will it stop me from playing it and getting another one? Probably not, but it does stop me from progressing in my game, so now I'm just starting games over to play because if I can't get my retro achievements, I'm not moving forward. Now I know it's going to sound like I've said a whole lot of negatives about this handheld, and that's because there is. But for those who don't make it this far in the video, you're not going to find out that I actually love this little pixel. We all love things that aren't necessarily good for us, but when you get things working the way that you want, this piece of Metal Mastery is phenomenal. I could think of far worse ways to spend my time chasing what feels like a bad habit. Every time I pull this out in public, it's almost guaranteed someone's going to ask me about it. I should have ordered green or yellow. More people probably would have asked, but you know, the blue's still pretty cool. People are like, ooh, that's a nice color blue. It's actually, I thought it was going to be more powdery. Anyways, so it gives you a chance to talk your hobby that's probably mostly hidden from the general world, and this is a healthy way to be able to discuss it with people. It gives you something to talk about, maybe find some common ground. I've found that when I've talked about it, people are like, oh, I'm into this or that, or, you know, I remember this from when I was a kid. This will bring back some of that conversation, and for that alone, it's probably worth it in this world that we live in right now, where everybody is super depressed, and you know every time that you go out, you are going to pull it out because it literally fits anywhere. I mean anywhere. So you can smuggle this wherever you go. So you're always going to have it there, and those conversations are going to continue to happen. Also, it's actually far more playable, like than those funky-ass keychains. A lot of us collected them a few years ago. I don't even know where mine is anymore. It's just mine. I have no idea what happened to that thing. And the funky-ass you can't really even play like Pokemon or anything on because you can't read the text. It's too small. Now, some people might think that this is too small. I'd say this is right on that edge for me. This is about as small as they can get. I do like bigger devices too, but the small ones, if I can carry them around, I'm digging it. And this right here is definitely a pocketable device. I would show you, but I feel like it's unnecessary to show you that this fits in my pocket or anywhere else. So I guess you could say it's almost like a perfect balance between size and playability. I found it's not my favorite way to play mini games, but it is my favorite handheld to have in my pocket because it doesn't take up any room, so it's there when I need it. You know, they say the best emulator is the one that you have with you. So this little mini metal micro machine has really become one of my favorites. It's not going to edge out my Miyoo Mini. It's just not going to happen, especially the Plus because it has Wi-Fi. But this is going to be the thing that'll be in my pocket versus having this in my pocket. This always has felt fragile. This screen feels fragile though, so I got to figure something out for that. There's got to be a screen cover or something out there somewhere that I can find, or else I'm just going to cut one down for it. It's going to look like crap and I'm going to be upset. But in my daily life, this makes it to the end of the day with the few times I pull it out just to play some quick games or play, you know, one level on Mario or whatever. And then at the end of the day, I just put it in that charging dock and move on with my life. In the morning, pull it back out, put it in my pocket. This is fantastic for all that. Or if I'm sitting in the pickup line to pick up the kids, I use it there all the time. Since I seem to be including Pico 8 in all my videos lately, we're going to go in here. This is in the RetroArch menu. Also, it's really hard to tell which one is highlighted. This is in the RetroArch menu. You can play Pico 8. Pico 8 does play on here. I was just going to show it, and now I can't get to it because it doesn't want to work with me. Let's play this game real quick. Also, every time I try to exit a game on Pico in here, it thinks it lost the cart, so I don't know if it's actually deleting them. I don't know what it thinks X is. Not what X actually is. Okay. So this is just a remake. I can't remember which one has the jets in it, but it's not the original one. Anyways, Pico is pretty sweet on here. I always forget it only uses 2 keys. I tend to play more puzzle games on Pico. Okay, so let's try this. So we're going to go menu. We do have a quit system on here. On the regular Pico system, it does not give you an option to just quit. See how it says system and delete? It just deletes. I don't know why. But this one gives you an option to actually keep it in there. So that's pretty neat. So start and then back. Okay, so I don't really have a whole lot else for you. I will go through and do some more things with this device. It's still in the game. It didn't even... I will have a more comprehensive video for you when I do get MIUI set up. Have you tried the Pixel? I'm just kind of curious. Is this a handheld that if you've looked at picking up? I'd love to hear from you down in the comment section, because I don't know if I'm the only person that thought this would be really cool, and I really like it. I know most reviewers are just crapping on this thing, but honestly, like, if you know what you're getting into, I think it's worth it. If I didn't know what I was getting into, if you take the level of upset I am about the Wi-Fi and then just do the whole device, I would be freaking pissed. This would be a whole different review. So maybe it's because I knew what I was getting into and knowing everybody else hated it. But let me know down in the comment section down below what you think about it. I love reading your comments. I do it during whatever little bit of downtime I have these days. Sometimes I just scroll them and reply to them while I'm working on the website. Seems to be the easiest way for me to do it now. I'm kind of running out of time to get a lot of things done with the new crotch goblin running around. I'm having a hard time even getting videos up. But that's all I got for you today. Please feel free to rate whether you like this video or not. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you want more content like this sliding into your feed, I would love to read your thoughts in the comment section like I just said, and share this video with your mom before she shares it with your friends. If you're looking for something else to watch, there is a couple of videos up here on the screen that YouTube picked out for you. If they don't interest you, then the YouTube AI made a boo-boo, because they are based off your watch history. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye-bye! That was a shit video. I probably should have waited. I'm not feeling well. But this is the first time I've had a house that didn't have a bunch of kids running around it in over a week, so I was actually able to have time to record. I just can't get my brain to work right. Damn it!